Katy Winton, welcome to the Drop-In podcast. Thank you for coming in. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's very cool to be here.
We're here in the Drop and Roll track in Peebles, your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe Peebles to the unlucky people who have never experienced its joys?
Well, Peebles has its own catchphrase, which is Peebles for pleasure, and I think that tells you everything you need to know. You're in for a good time when you come to Peebles.
It's a bit of a mountain biking mecca, really, isn't it, Peebles? Especially for Scotland. It's a pretty ideal spot for you as a professional mountain bike racer to live and train in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's got everything I need. Since I was a kid, riding all the Glentress Trail Centre stuff, learning all my skills and things, and then now the Golfy and Innerleithen and all the spots that are popping up everywhere. There's so many tracks, and when I've got to ride my bike fairly often, it's great because there's so many trails. You don't get bored. You can kind of go, oh, well, I've ridden there quite a bit, so I'll just go and ride this other spot, but you don't need to go far. So we're definitely very spoiled.
Yeah, it's pretty insane to think like it's not a super small place, but for such a small place, there's an insane level of riding in terms of professionals here, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And it's definitely down to having such a massive trail network. It's a great place to train. You know, Bex Barona and her partner Chloe, they moved up here because it's such an ideal place to train for our sport. So, yeah, it's definitely a place to be.
Well, I think it'd be cool to like hear how you got into riding and stuff like that. But I suppose like most topically, you've been in the news a fair bit, or the mountain bike news at least, a fair bit in the last sort of like 6 months. And that was like your well-documented struggling experience of basically finding yourself without a team fairly late on in the year by sort of mountain bike racing standards. Can you tell people listening a little bit about how that even came to be and what exactly happened?
Oh, it's just like the perfect storm of wrong place, wrong time, wrong year, because COVID and, you know, it was just all came together at once, and I was in a difficult situation and had to get out of it, basically. Yeah, it was definitely the most stressful 7 months of my life.
So what sort of time frame are we looking at? When did you actually first hear the news? Because you're on the factory team, Trick Factory Racing. What sort of dates are we talking about when you actually heard the news that you weren't going to have your contract renewed?
So that was middle of October that I found that out. But things got off to a bad start anyway because the season was so late. So usually we would have done a few races by the sort of June, July time, and that's when you kind of start having those conversations. Okay, right, what are you thinking? Are we going to renew or are we not? You know, where are you guys at? But those conversations didn't happen because there was no racing, and they wanted to wait till they'd done some racing, and the future of racing was so in the air that companies were like, well, what do we do? You know, we've not had any race exposure. You know, where do we want to put our marketing budget? So there was a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty, because then they're like, well, do we want to invest in racing if racing's not going to happen next year? So all of that put a massive delay on any conversations happening anyway. And so then I take full responsibility. You know, I as an athlete have to, you know, I am responsible for my career, and so I should be speaking to other people and making sure I have backup options in case things don't go through with my one option where all my eggs are. So
it was like looking positive though. You'd been given an indication, you hadn't been given assurances that something would have been sorted out.
Yeah, but it's just words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I had signed sort of like a letter of intent or something like that, then yes, we're in a difficult situation if you turn around and say, no, we're not going to do it anymore. But there hadn't been any of that. Okay. So you can't just run on half words of like, we think we're going to keep going, we're just going to see how the racing goes, blah, blah. But you can't just rely on that. Mm-hmm. And that's partly why I wanted to share my story, was to be like, to make other riders aware, because I don't want anybody else in that situation. It's hellish, absolutely hellish. Yeah. And as riders, we're all just kind of muddling our way through, talking to bike brands and everything that all know the process, have spoken to many riders, usually over many years, so they understand the process. A lot of riders that are coming into this, they might not know about all of this stuff. So it was kind of like raising the awareness, like, don't get caught out like me.
Yeah. It's so hard though, isn't it? Because like I've experienced it before, and I'm sure it's not specific to the mountain bike industry, where the first meetings are always like great, whether it's with a existing partner, whatever, or the first discussions about, like, say, a new contract, whatever, are always favourable. But yeah, just nothing is certain, really, isn't it? And until you sign that dotted line, it's
exactly. Like, even when you've had really good conversations, you're like, yes, this is happening. Something could change on their end. Like, they could be juggling several different riders, and they could be like, okay, well, we've got all these ones, looking likely.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends if these other two sign, because if those other two sign, then that means we've not got budget for these other people. But if they don't, then we have got these back. So you don't know what's going on behind the scenes for them. Yeah. They could also just have someone from above them just go, actually, we've decided to cut your budget, so you're only going to get X amount, and then they're like, oh, well, now we can't do what we were going to do. So yeah, you just have to be prepped and ready for every scenario. Yeah,
it's definitely easier said than done. For people listening, I think even if you're into mountain biking, and even in a big way, unless you're like in the industry, it's quite hard to know like how different formats of teams and stuff work and operate. For people listening, how would you describe the factory setup, which is kind of like what you had basically with Trek? How does that all work? What's the economics of it, and what are the sort of logistics and roles involved there?
So like even from sort of negotiating standpoint and into being in the team. Mm-hmm. So you basically negotiate with one person, and you're negotiating like your salary and your bonuses, how many bikes, but they'll be taking care of everything else. So now I'm doing it myself. I talk to everybody, so from bike brands to components to clothing. I'm sorting all of those things out. With a team, you're talking to one person and they're sorting out all of those things for you. So you just negotiate a salary, your bonuses, all that stuff, and then that's it. You're sorted. So they'll take care, they're organising all of the logistics to get to the races. They're paying for all your expenses. They've got mechanics and staff there to help you perform. So basically, you can do your job really well. You just be the athlete, do your social media, turn up and race well. There's like very little reason to fail. Your salary essentially is your take-home money, basically. Yeah. Everything else is taken care of, from bikes to parts to logistics. Yeah. And then now the privateer setup, basically set up that you're on now. Yeah, it is. How does that work exactly? A lot of admin. Are you now realising, like, are you kind of like reaching back out to some of your old team managers now and being like, fair play to like all the stuff that you guys have put up with in the past? Well, I knew. That's why I liked the team, because I was like, I understand how much is going on here and how much you have to do to organise and get all the logistics together and make sure all the people that are investing, all the sponsors, all the people that are investing in the team are happy and getting what they should be getting from their investment. So I was very aware there was a lot of work, but they're a team and they've got people to do that stuff, specifically that stuff. As a rider and racer, I am a one-woman thing where I have to do all of those things. So it's like I'm organising logistics, I'm organising the sponsors, I'm organising training. I've got to do all the training and I've got to do all the athlete stuff as well. So it just is a huge pile. There is a lot of benefits because I've got so much freedom. I can do whatever I want, whenever I like. And, I've got opportunities to work with the people that I want to work with. So there's definitely a lot of positives. It's just finding that balance so that it doesn't hinder my performance as a racer, because ultimately I want to win. Yeah, for sure. Like, that's one thing that's just constant throughout, isn't it? Regardless of the setup. Mm-hmm. So to go back to the end of 2020, how do you even get that news? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? Is it an in-person meeting to actually find out that your contract's not getting renewed? We had a phone call. Okay. We just. And it was just kind of out of nowhere, really. And yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's the same thing that we were speaking about earlier. Like, you never know, so nothing's guaranteed. But I was kind of hoping, I'd been acting out the whole October, having a nice chill time, just like, sweet, that's. Yeah, and you had a pretty good season last year as well. Like, it's obviously a difficult season with the way it was shortened, like you said, but it's not as if you had come off the back of like, was it 3 races in total? Mm-hmm. It's not as if you had 3 bad races to think, oh shit, I'm in trouble here. But what's that? What's your first emotion then when you hang up that phone? Is it like despair, or are you like straight into action? I was a bit shocked, obviously, and just the kind of usual emotions. It's just like getting dumped, isn't it? You're kind of just a bit like, oh my God. Oh, right, okay. And I just took a bit of time to really feel that, because I was like, well, this is real now. Like, you're going to have to step up and you got a lot of work ahead of you to do. But I was also like, well, this is an incredible opportunity to do something else, to try something new. You know, I'd been on that setup for 5 years, so it's like, sweet, let's see what else is out there and see, you know, what else might work or work better or whatever. So it was kind of like mixed emotions. But yeah, it was also just like, wow, like the 5 years is over now. Like, you're a bit sad. You're, oh, I'm done now.
Once you kind of get over that first emotion, what's your first port of call in terms of action? Is it a case of like reaching out to more factory teams for that sort of factory setup? Because that's still ultimately like the preferred option.
Yeah, for sure. And because it was so late in the year, I was hoping I could just sneak onto a team somehow. And also, like, I didn't want to take a step back. I wanted to take a step across onto another team, because I'm like I say, like you were saying, like I wasn't out of touch at those races. So it's not like I've gone backwards and I'm just trying to salvage the rest of my career. I'm still right there. So I want to be on a team that's going to allow me to perform well. It's not just going to be any old team. I need to look at the setups and figure out, okay, you know, I want to make good decisions, because ultimately I want to do well. And that's not just like, okay, I'm just going to get on a team that's going to go well, because every team's got their pros and cons. So you need to find out what's important to you and what works well or doesn't work well, and try and suss it out. I just had to do that really, really quickly.
So when you talk about being selective with teams, what's the main things that you look for in a team? Is it bike? Is it sort of staff? Or is it just really looking at everything as a whole?
Definitely all of that. For me specifically, I need the bike to fit me. That is a key thing. So that was really important for me. I wanted a bike that fitted me. But also, if I'm going to go into a team, I want to make sure the environment's key, because ultimately that week of racing is so important, and you want to have good people around you. You want to feel confident and like they've got your back, and that it's a good environment so you can get yourself the best out of yourself, because you're throwing yourself down a mountain, you know what I mean? And if you're stressed with the people around you, you can't go to that risk-taking part because you're stressed. So you're almost in a sort of I'm not going to take risks because this is dangerous, you know what I mean? You're in that stress state. Whereas if you've got good crew and it's fun and you're having a good time, that doesn't feel like that anymore. It just feels good to take these risks, you know.
And that's when you get fast. And
that's when you go fast, because you just trust the people around you, you trust your bike, you trust yourself, and it's just great times, you know what I mean? And so, but that takes the right people, and that's quite hard to find.
So are you basically like putting yourself like a list of teams, writing them down? You got like first choice, second choice, and then like reaching out to them in that order? Or is it a case of like, is it that late in the year you just like mail shot, send to all? Like
everyone. And just trying to get contacts and trying to send them out, and also looking at, okay, right, well, what bike brands don't have a team? Who might want a team, you know, and putting out to them as well to see, because you just don't know what opportunities are there, and people don't know they have an opportunity with you either, because a lot of the brands, when I spoke to them, they were like, oh, we just thought you'd be with Trek forever. So, you know, it's like, it's a two-way thing. They need to know for you, but also I feel like the brands as well should just be reaching out to athletes to see if there is opportunities, because they might be missing out.
They didn't think that you were an option, basically, and like, there's no point in reaching out to her because she's with Trek next year. And
obviously, like, if things are working for you, you'll continue on. You just be like, oh no, but because this setup is really good for me. But you know, if people are thinking, oh, maybe a change would be good, then there's definitely opportunities there. So it was just about getting the word out there as quickly as possible and just being like, anybody.
And then at what stage did it become apparent to you that because of budgets, because of where you're at in the time of year, that you learned that the factory option wasn't there anymore?
I really badgered one of them a lot, and they'd already said no to me, but I was like, come on, like, surely we could figure something out, like. And they really, really tried, and I really appreciated that. And they pulled out in January. Okay,
cool. So you're literally already into... And in terms of, again, people hearing how the salary system works and stuff, are you paid by your previous employer essentially all the way up until the end of 2020?
Yeah.
So by January, like, you're officially unemployed. I guess with budgets and everything for those guys, it must just be getting harder and harder kind of by the day. So in January, you basically changing your focus from factory setups to, right, I've got to build my own program essentially. Yeah,
and I had other people on the go at that point as well in backup. I just was like, if I can get a factory deal, even just for 1 year, just to give me some time then I'll do that. It also means that I take a step across rather than taking a step back. And so yeah, I was just like, right, okay, you're just going to have to commit to doing this yourself.
When you make that decision, or that decision's essentially made for you, for people listening, how do you even start putting that program together? Do you start with a frame and build from there, or is it a case of, again, just like listing the bike parts and things that you need support from and going mad with the DMs and emails?
Yeah, well, I had SRAM this whole time. They were like, we've got your back, we want to support you. And so I was working closely with them, but they couldn't come forward until they knew which bike I was going to be on. So
okay, because that's all wrapped up in terms of like how complete bikes are sold and whether they even, that specific bikes actually put SRAM parts on their bikes.
Exactly. So that favours more with them if I sign with a bike brand, which they sell bikes on, well, like with SRAM parts on. So
like
that's
the OEM
like,
stuff.
Yeah, the OEMs. That's a big factor that I didn't know until I was through this process. So like, I'm learning things.
Yeah, I guess once that becomes a factor, you're immediately halving probably the amount of bike brands that you can kind of reach out to.
Yeah, kind of. Like I didn't even think about it because I was like, SRAM have been so good.
Yeah.
I don't, the other bikes, it doesn't matter to me because I only stay with SRAM because, in terms of our values and things, they're aligned, and that was really important to me. And they value the people, they look after their athletes, and I was like, this is a company I really want to stay with. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing though, when I was speaking to other people about like, wheels and everything else, they're like, even clothing, they were like, what bike are you going to be on? I'm like,
yeah, it's so chicken and egg, isn't it? Like,
totally.
It's hard to kind of get stack everything up when you...
Yeah, because they've all got links or not links and da-da-da-da. So yeah, the frame was the biggest thing. If I said to them, nah, I'm not going to have a frame, I'm just going to buy one, whatever, then that could have sorted my problems out. But
right, okay.
I was not in a position to do that.
If you can even find one as well. It's like...
Well, that's it, exactly. Yeah, because that was the other thing that was putting pressure on me. Because I was like, time was ticking on, and I was like, just hearing all these like, oh, well, there's not going to be any bikes, new bikes until August and stuff. And I'm like, the season starts in June. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I need the bike.
Yeah. Do you sell your bikes from the previous year then?
Yeah.
To kind of help finance things?
Well, that Trek were really good. They let me keep my bikes so I could sell them because I was like, guys, like, I'm in a difficult situation. Like, could I keep these bikes? Because that might be the way I'm going to fund my season next year. And they said yes. So, that was huge. And they didn't have to do that. Yeah. They didn't have to do that. I
think that might almost come as a shock because I think everyone thinks that as mountain bikers, we're on this like crazy money. I don't know, like not necessarily up there with footballers, but I think people just assume that mountain bikers get paid a ton of money. So when they hear how important it is for a rider to be able to sell their bikes, they probably don't realise just how important that is because it could be like an extra 10 grand or something, couldn't it?
Well, absolutely. And also, if you think about it, right, so we get paid a salary, so that's X amount, but that might be quite low, and then we earn based on the results because we've got good bonus schemes, because there's different ways you can do it. So you could have a lower salary but a good bonus scheme, and then you get, you can bump up your salary by doing well. And then if you've only got 3 chances to do that,
yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like, so there's that whole side of things as well that people just don't know about because you don't if you're not in the industry, you don't know how it all works. So, that's like for this year, for me to make money, I need to get in the top 5.
Okay. With your new team that you put together, you still have bonus structure from the individual partners?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
So which is good.
Is that really important? Not just from the financial side, do you find that's just a really good motivational tool as well? More so now?
Nah, because I'm not in it for the money.
Yeah.
But this year it is because I've not got any money.
Yeah.
But that's through my choice. I chose these brands even though they didn't have budget because my performance was why I'm doing this. I want to do the best I possibly can, and I want the best components to do that. So if that means I have to invest my own money into this, that's fine because I'm the one that's got to turn up to those races and give it everything. And if I've got the equipment that makes me feel good and I have a good time on, then that's worth my money.
Yeah. It's interesting to just hear how it all works. It's like I say, I'm sure people just don't understand how much goes in behind the scenes.
It's a mad world.
It's not all chilling and riding. There's a lot more to it.
I know.
So we're in January. When do the brands start kind of lining up for you and getting on board essentially then?
Well, at the end of January,
Okay.
start of February, I cracked massively because I'm just in this limbo land for 4 or 5 months of not knowing what on earth my future holds, how I'm going to do the racing, kind of waiting for other people to get back to me, that I just went, okay, I'm taking matters into my own hands. And that's when I phoned Nukeproof and I was like, hi.
Okay.
Can you do me a frame? I want to ride your bikes, And they were like, yeah. And then they got me in contact with tyres and everything. Like, they were like, oh, we could do this, and you could do that, and you could get these people, and I've got these contacts for this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, initially for about a week I was useless, like completely useless, just having the relief of like having that sorted because SRAM was happy with Nukeproof, and I was like, sweet, that's good. And it all kind of started from there. But it's like February, it was the middle of March when we actually, things were kind of pretty locked in. So there's still quite a bit of admin to do until that point, just kind of telling everybody, this is what's happening, are you still keen, blah, blah, get all the other bits and pieces in place. And then the launch didn't even happen until middle of April.
Oh, really? That's like...
Yeah,
it's like
a long time.
unprecedented in terms of like timelines and stuff when you think...
Yeah.
Obviously COVID has just completely like thrown a curveball into everything and just all bets are off. But in previous years, whether you're a racer or not, you'd be signing contracts in like September, or at least having fairly like forward chats with brands.
Yeah.
And everything would be announced on the first week of January, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's chaos. Absolute chaos.
Really?
I was so lucky, because Nukeproof could have been like, now we can't do anything. We don't even have any bikes. So, yeah, I was definitely lucky with it all working the way it did.
Yeah.
So
when you say you cracked, is that like almost like are we talking like a sort of psychological breakdown?
Oh, yeah.
Or are you talking about like a crack into action? Or a bit of both?
No, I'd been in action for too long.
Yeah, okay.
I'd been in this high stress state for so long, and it was also, January was probably the worst January we've had in years. It's obviously dark in January, but it snowed and then it froze and it was icy and it was just snow for 6 weeks or something. I was just training in my shed, and it's hard dealing with that. We're in lockdown as well, so you've not got your normal, like, at least you can go and see your pals and kind of get a bit of a break. I was just in this sort of black hole for so long, and I was just like, you're just constantly trying to stay positive. The brands are pulling out, this person can't do it now, you can't get answers from people, and you're just bashing your head off a wall, just being like, my competitors are training real well right now, and they've got even longer to train because the season doesn't start till June, and I'm still muddling around trying to sort out my future. So yeah, it was just, I just woke up and it had snowed again, and I was just like, oh my God, like I can't do this anymore. And then I'd spoken to someone and they were like, oh, have you tried this brand? So then I started trying this brand, and then I just started losing it because I was like, I can't, because you're being vulnerable putting yourself out there to all these different brands, because I'm making individual like proposals to every one of them, because some of them are like, okay, well, we want just your frame, or we could do your full bike and your clothing, or we could just do your bike, you know what I mean? So you're going, okay, well, if you just do that, then that'll be this, and if you want that as well, then that'll be that. So like constantly just grafting away, and then just for nothing, absolutely nothing.
Just rejection.
Totally.
Over and over.
Yeah, and like I was speaking to my friends as well, like before the lockdown scenario began, and they were like, oh yeah, well we're trying to get a job as well. And I'm like, yeah, but you'll apply for a job and then there'll be another job. I've literally got a window where there could be a job and then there will be no jobs, and then I'll still have to do my job in June, regardless.
And there's probably about 15 to 20 potential employers technically, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
And once you've got to the end of that list.
Exactly. I was like, it's not the same.
Yeah. It is a really tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you look back at that period of from say October, November all the way through to when you announce, what would you say is like the hardest part of that whole process? Is it the rejection, or is there something else there that's just makes things difficult for you? Or is it a combination of it all?
It's probably all of it. It's absolutely all of it. It was just the heightened stressed state for such a long period of time that just grinds you down, because you try and stay positive and be like, okay, well, this is going to be all right. But I'm literally like questioning, will I continue racing or not? You know, you're having these big questions too of like, is it worth it? Because it's stressful dealing with it, because you do this every 2 years. This is what people don't know. Like, although you're not in this extreme situation I'm in, every 2 years or every 1 year or every 3 years, depending on how long your contract is, you literally don't know whether you're going to have a job or not.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of jobs that are like that, you know, your contracted jobs, and it's very stressful. Sometimes you just want to have a job where you're like, cool, I'm just going to get paid and I just do my job, and you're going to sort out all my taxes and you're going to pay my pension, you know, like have that a bit of security. I've literally lived this life, like my whole adult life has been in this sort of stressful kind of state, and it's hard. And I was like, do you want to keep doing this?
Yeah.
You know?
Was there some serious consideration in terms of either taking a break or just full on
for
retiring?
sure, because I didn't even know where racing was going to happen.
Yeah.
I was like, well, is it worth me trying to make these, like, get these brands on board if I don't know if race? I can't guarantee that I'm going to give them the return that they want, because I don't know whether there's going to be racing. Like, you know, it was hard. There was a lot of serious questions happening. So yeah, but then I was like, nah, I want to race. Like and it's good, because I had to really honestly ask myself those questions, and I was like, nah, I want to race. Like, I really want to race. I'll be losing my nut if I'm not at those races. So this is what I want to do.
It's a good one to then know that you're doing it for the right reasons. Then you're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for sponsors or your team. You're doing it because you really want to. And I guess it takes something like that to find what it's all about, really.
Yeah, and I mean, it was heartbreaking because I'm not done. Like, I was still in the top 5, and I was like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Like, what is happening? Like, I'm not done yet. There's so much more that I can do, and I'm in this situation. Like, what is happening? What is happening?
One thing I'm always interested about in general life, but when I hear you talking about your story there, one thing that just jumps into my head is Instagram and social media. Is that really having a negative effect? The way that you're feeling, essentially, looking at your competitors above you and below you in the standings that have probably got their deal sorted and out training stuff. Nah,
because, you know, for me, like I went back, like I came off social media as of January because I was out of contract then, and I was like, well, I can't be on this platform pretending everything's fine, because it was so bad. I'm not on there for, oh yeah, biking's great and everything's fantastic. I'm there to tell my story honestly, and I couldn't do that, so I came off it, and then I'd go back and forth deleting off my phone and stuff. But I was in such a difficult place that actually looking at Instagram allowed me to feel part of the community still.
Okay, cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it was actually positive. Like, people talk about it really negatively a lot of the time, but it allowed me to sort of stay connected with the community. And I was like, oh yeah, biking's still good, especially when we're in lockdown. You can't see people. I could go on there, and you know, it didn't matter my competitors or whatever. I don't really care what they're doing. But I can see they're biking and they're having a good time. I'm like, yeah, biking is good, and you know, you guys are my friends, and you know, I get to see what you're up to, and I still feel connected to that. So
it's really cool to be able to take that perspective of it. And I think the way that you talk about your competitor is quite representative of the mountain bike community as a whole, isn't it? Even in racing and the competitive scene, it's really cool to see that everyone is essentially friends, and there's always that mutual respect that sort of shines through once the competition's done, isn't there?
Well, we're all into it because we love bikes.
Yeah.
And so whichever way they choose to share that is up to them. But it's like, yeah, we're all in this, loving mountain biking and doing what we do, and they might be doing things differently to you, and that's all right. I think it's just hard because people go in there with like a comparing attitude, and it's like, nah, that's just their grass over there. It doesn't mean it's any greener or better than yours from this perspective that you're seeing it. It's just that's what it looks like from here.
Yeah, it's a good way to be, but it's easier said than done sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. You just have to keep watering your own grass.
That's a good little snippet. On the subject of social media, you made a series of YouTube videos about the whole process and your experience. What was the thoughts behind that, and when did that all come about?
Well, it just kind of goes back to sort of my key value when it comes to social media and things, and that's being honest. And it was just such a hard time that I couldn't stay quiet about that. Like, I needed people to, like, I've always been honest about things that have been going on, and so I was like, I need to explain this story. And because I then was going to be doing it myself, I was like, well, I want people to back me and come along with this journey with me, and then we'll see where it goes from there, because I'm never going to be in this situation again.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm sharing what's happening.
Yeah.
For the benefit of younger riders and things as well. Okay, this is what's going on. And also, I think everybody had been going through a difficult time, and they might have been going on social media and seeing that, oh, everybody's having a great time and I'm not. So I just wanted to be honest and be like, yeah, this was difficult, but I kept going, and you've probably been going through something difficult, but you're also still here, so that's great. You know, like, it's relatable content. So I wanted to share the story. I'd been quiet for 3 months, and I'd actually had quite a few messages of people just being like, yeah, you all right? Like, and it was so nice. I was like, that's really kind. You're a complete stranger, and you're like, are you okay? And they're like, oh, I've had things with friends that they've gone quiet and there's actually been something the matter, and so I just wanted to check you're all right. I was like, oh, that's really nice. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I wanted to be honest and share the story and build some hype around my next venture.
They were really interesting to see, and I think from looking at it and looking at the comments, it's safe to say that they were received well, really well. But before you released that, was it quite a thing for you to sort of put yourself out there like that?
Oh yeah, I was terrified. Like, I'd had that video made, the first one, for ages, and I kept going back to it, and I was like getting my friends to watch it and stuff. I was like, do you think that's all right? Like, is it too much? Is it, is it okay? Like, and then I was just like, I just sort of had a think, and I was like, wait, this is going to split your followers and stuff like that, because some people are going to be into this and some people are really not going to be into this. Some people do not want to see this. They just want to see good fun biking, and that's totally fine. But I was just like, okay, that's all right, because this is a true representation of me, and if you don't like it, that's fine. Like, that,
you don't need to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind. Like, some people, I'm not for everybody. Some people aren't going to like me, and that's fine. But the people that do like that and want to watch it are the people I want in my life. So that's fine. And so that gave me the confidence to just put it out there. But it was terrifying, because you don't know which way it's going to go. People could be like, stop mourning. Yeah.
The comments I observed, I'm sure you've read through them and stuff, but there was an overwhelming outpouring of support from the mountain bike community. So how did that feel?
Oh, it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow. It was so nice, because there'd been so much negativity going on. People were having a hard time in lockdowns and things, and we're all completely disconnected because you can't see anybody and everything. And to see the kindness of people come out was really, really nice. I was like, it just put my faith back in humanity. I was like, look at all these lovely people.
Was that a bit of a turning point then, both in terms of your sort of psychological state, as well as actually things started coming together when people are actually seeing that and brands seeing that you're available?
Yeah, for sure, because for me it felt like I'd been suffering in silence, because I'd just been quiet on social media and things. So to get that news out there and let people know, like, yes, because at the end of that video I showed that I get sorted. People didn't know what, but like, for them to know that it wasn't just, oh yeah, Katy's been signed, that's cool. And they needed to know what went into that.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just plain sailing, and so it was good to get it out there. I felt relieved and like, okay, people know this story now, and we're all up to speed.
When I think back of putting some videos on YouTube and stuff, and I wasn't even close to going how deep that you were in terms of putting yourself out there, and just like, even just chatting to camera and stuff, it's like, takes a lot. I know I do, just overthinking everything, isn't it? Like, what are people going to think of this? What are we going to think of that? So
yeah, because you're being vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there, and you have to be really brave to do that, and it's difficult in this day and age, because people, especially on the internet, can be ruthless and so mean, because they're not saying it to your face. And so it's definitely risky when you put things out there, especially on the internet, because they can just take you down. Did
you get much in terms of negativity? Because one thing, we were talking about the Vero Sandler and Tanny Seagrave podcast I did, and Vero made an interesting point in that she thought, or she's experienced, because she sees it from both sides, because she, between her boyfriend and her brother, are professional riders, she feels that the women and females get a lot more negativity on social media. Is that something you've experienced?
Touch wood, I haven't actually. Yeah. And I can't believe it, because I've kind of just been waiting. Like, where's the hate? When's the hate gonna come?
They're in the hidden folder on Instagram. Like.
Yeah, but so far so good. I've seemed to have somehow treaded a line that's not annoyed people, which is I can't really believe. So touch wood, there's not been any hate. So I think, I don't know what it is. I am continually like, my followers are really nice, and I'm just continually just like, wow, you're all just really nice. Like, that's even good. When I put out like difficult posts of like a race hasn't gone so well and that, they're all like, no, keep going, you know, don't be so hard on yourself, you know, they're always being encouraging and things. Yeah, and it's good. I can't believe it, because I'm like, where are all the haters? They're somewhere.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know.
You'll see them if they come, so don't waste your time looking for them.
They'll just be whispering to each other. We're gonna get her at some point.
Nah, you'd be grand. So tell us a little bit about the sort of program that you put together. Who have you got on board? You obviously mentioned Youth Proof, but what are the rest of the partners supporting you for this year?
Well, I've got my granny and grandpa on board.
Oh yeah, that is a cool story that people will see in the videos. It's Keeping Up with Katy for people that are wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah, you can watch the
I'll put that in the description. Yeah, tell us about your gran and grandpa getting involved, because that's a cool little bit.
Well, it was quite sweet actually, because I went into their kitchen to see them, and they'd been worried about me, and I was like, look, I think we've got the bike brand sorted now. And they were like, have you? And then they're like, oh, my grandpa's like, right, well, your granny and I have been talking. And I was like, and they're like, we've decided that we can sponsor you this year. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but they were like, it's a 1 year only deal. That's it.
Pressure.
And then you're on your own. But we just, you just need 1 more year to give it another shot. I was like, thank you. And I actually just started crying, because it was just in that period of it just being so hard. And then of just getting told no. And then I just got this bit of kindness back at me, and I was just like, oh, someone's finally helping me. So yeah, and I was like, right, well, since you're a financial sponsor, you get on the jersey. So that's actually really nice to have them there with me on my jersey, because they're always watching things, but to have them actually there is really cool. So they're on board. The team's actually called Moxie 11, which is a concept I came up with in December when I was trying to figure it out, but then was like, oh, it's okay, there might be a factory team, I'll just park that. And that was really just to sort of it was like a badge of honour, was basically what I was thinking, to spread that, to celebrate the courage that lies within all of us, because I totally believe that we've all got serious grit and determination within us. We just have to access it. Some people just don't know they have it, but it is there. And so, yeah, it's for that. To get me to where I am is just persistence. It's not like I'm crazy talented, or, I was never a prodigy or anything like that. I just never gave up. I was like the bit of chewing gum that just you couldn't get off your shoe. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's why I'm where I am. So Moxie is a slang word for courage, persistent, and like a courageous spirit, basically. And so that worked really well. The 11 is actually Moxie, XI. There's an XI in Moxie. And 11 is the letter K number. Yeah,
okay, yeah. Association. Like in Roman numerals, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So like, the number, K is the 11th letter in the alphabet. Okay. K is the first letter in my name.
So there's going to be an EWS factory team in the future, like...
Quite possibly. Yeah. It's been really interesting actually this season, trying to figure out the differences in what I want for the future and things like that. So yeah, I'm definitely looking at that. But we've got SRAM on board. They've stood by me this whole time. We've got RockShox, we've got Zip Wheels, and I've got Michelin Tires, Crank Brothers on the pedals, and Trolley Designs for all my clothing and helmet and everything. So it's a pretty sick setup.
We obviously talked about bike setup and picking frames and stuff. Has that been one of the main positives of putting your program together? Is actually not just riding the frame that you want to ride, but also being able to like pick your tires, have the suspension that you want?
Yeah, definitely. When you're in a team, you're tied into whoever's sponsoring the team, and you don't really get a lot of say because it's the team manager that's taking care of all of that. So for me to get full say, I was just like, sweet. I can just run all my dream stuff and run a mint setup. And it was through Nuke Proof that I got in touch with Michelin Tires, because they're an OE for Nuke Proof. So is how that all links together. And I was like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because they're keen. They're like, sweet, yep, we want Michelin tires on nuke-proof bikes. So that's mint. And I tried them and was like, these are insane. So from that point of view, I'm absolutely buzzing because I've got all the product and kit that I would want to ride.
It's cool, like, to think, just having that exact bike dialed in that you like rather than...
I know. It's amazing.
Getting told what parts you need to ride.
Yeah.
Has there been any instances along the way when you're putting your program together where you've actually had to really, like, choose between performance and financial backing?
Yeah, I mean, the whole way.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm constantly... every time I'm making the decision about a brand or a team or things, I'm coming back to like my values. Mm-hmm. Like, does this match what I'm trying to achieve here? How does it weigh up between, okay, they're going to give me this amount of money, but how much does this affect my performance? And when we're coming down to crumbs at the end of the season, the weigh up goes straight to performance because I'm like, well, I'm hardly going to make any money anyway.
Okay.
So let's bump up the performance side of the scale so that you can just give everything and you're not worried about the product you're on because it performs and it's amazing. Cool.
There has been a few offers turned down because it's maybe not the right sort of components that you want to ride.
Yeah, or not the right people. Okay, cool. Some people I was talking to and I was just like, the way you're running this show is a shambles. And so, how is that going? And I'm quite organised, and so if there's a lot of chaos coming from somewhere else, that's going to cause me stress. Some people can deal with that, fine. But for me, that's going to cause me a lot of stress. So I'm like, right, well, that's going to impede on my performance. So that's a no. You know what I mean? So it's just, you just have to know yourself, know what's important to you and make the decisions based on your values and go from there.
Even myself, like with an industry, I'm not a racer. So it's really interesting just to hear how it all sort of like fits into place and stuff. With SRAM, how important was that? Just having SRAM there from the start, just like knowing that consistency and that backing's like unwavering.
Oh, it was amazing. Like, because I was just on crumble street. I was crumbling. I was just like, oh, what am I going to do? And they're just there and they're like, no, we'll make this happen. We've got your back. And I was speaking, it was John Dawson I was speaking to like every other week. And he was like, right, how are you getting on with this? Okay, we'll speak to this person, and Sarah Leishman, who's global communications at SRAM, she was a big pusher in it as well. She was like, how can we make this happen? Like, what, who else is there? Like, this is, we can't lose her.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, like, especially going through all of that, because when I'm getting denied all the time, you start to question your value. You're like, I thought it was all right. Like, maybe I'm not. Nobody seems to want me. So, like, is there something wrong with me? What's putting them off? So to have them being like, no, you're still a valuable part of our program. We want to keep you on. Just sort of calmed me down a bit, being like, no, it's all right. Like, you can keep pushing here because you've got this huge brand that sees your value. Yeah,
I guess of all the brands to support you, like, there's not many like more history rich and prestigious as SRAM, really, is there?
Yeah.
In terms of bike brand, so
definitely, I was honoured.
Lots of layers to that support. So you put your program together. 2021 race season kicks off. What's it like to be on the roads at the races with your own setup?
It was very cool. We went to Crankworks first, which was rad, and
course.
It was just me and my boyfriend Joe. He rides for Paul, and they let him sort of do a sort of privateer kind of setup. You just crack on and do the races. So that means we can do it together, which is really cool to be able to do it together. So we went to Crankworks. I actually got a new van, so we had to kit that out. So it was fairly hectic, even though things were signed in April. They didn't slow down. I was training harder then because sort of the stress had relieved a wee bit. And I didn't have so much admin to do, so I could really get out on the bike. I also had the bike, so I could get on it.
That helps.
Yeah. And then we went to Crankworks, and that was all good because I would have been there on a kind of similar setup anyway. And it was different. I've not really done much Crankworks before. But when I went to the EWS, it was weird. It was really weird, and I just had to kind of get used to that because it was like, whoa, like this is so different. Like I've been with the same sort of people for 5 years and all of a sudden I'm here on my own. Like, it was cool, but it was weird.
Yeah.
Definitely weird.
What's the main thing that stands out? It's a different vibe, essentially.
Well, it's quite nice because it is me and Joe. So it's someone you know really, really well. And so you're real chill because you're just like, we know each other really well. We can just do this. And we're actually a very efficient team. So like making dinner together, doing the bike, sorting everything out, like it's not a problem. Like it's low stress, so it's good. It's definitely good. But for me, I'm like weighing up, what is the difference here? Because I'm thinking about next year, like what I want to do, what's better, what's not. And it's like the team, you kind of turn up as a big dog just from being on the team. And I didn't know that this was a thing until I'm not on the team.
Okay.
Because you're there, you're like, I'm Trek Factory Racing, you know, like I'm someone. And it's just something that kind of was like all these things were like, I have no reason to fail because I've got everything around me to do what I need to do. So you have a sort of confidence in you because you're like, sweet, like everything is sorted out. And when I turned up there, I was like, although I had everything I needed, it was just ever so slightly different. And I was like, that's really weird. I'd never noticed that from being on the team, that was a thing. Because I just turned up and I was just on my own and I was just working out of our little house, and then that was kind of it. And I was like, oh, right. So that was kind of the main difference. The bike was mint and everything, so it wasn't like I had loads of work to do on it or anything, and SRAM was there if I needed anything, so it was just chill.
So do you still get mechanical support from SRAM then?
Yeah.
Okay, that must be a massive...
Oh man, it's huge.
Yeah.
So my bike was totally fine, really. They just service suspensions and things like that and just give the brakes a wee bleed, and I mean that's kind of all it really needs. It's pretty good after that because it's not like downhill where you're like changing your settings constantly and everything. It's like you're riding so many different tracks that the bike needs to be good everywhere, so you kind of just need a base setting that works and feels comfortable.
How did the first race go in terms of results? And
well, the first race I was 6th, which was insane.
Yeah.
Like that was insane. Didn't have good stage times, but I was just consistent all day and ended up 6th, and I was like, wow, nice. Like I was just like, nice.
Yeah, you're like, you know you're there and there. Because it's like, regardless of the pre-season that you've had, there's always that sort of big question over like where you're going to slot in terms of like how everyone's been training, how you're performing. It's probably been like 6 months.
Yeah.
At least, probably more in this instance, since you actually raced last.
Yeah, so there's a lot of nerves and things for everybody, but I was just like, man, we're here. Like, we made it. Like, this is amazing. You know, and just actually when I finished that race, I got a bit emotional because I was just like, oh my God, like, we did it. Yeah. Like, we made it here. You've got all your stuff. You're still in one piece. You finished the race. Like, you actually did it. Because up until that point, you're just holding it all together. You're just like, oh, God, right, get to the race, get through the race. You know, don't, like, screw anything up so that you can't race or whatever. And then I got through the race and I was just like, whoa, we did it. Like, I don't care. I literally did not care about the result because I was like, I've done it. Like, I've done it. Like, we've started this new chapter and it's happened.
Do you think the results are just that little bit more rewarding then because it's your own program and you're doing everything compared to the factory setup?
It's interesting actually because on the factory setup you're expected to get results because you're paid to be there for that reason, and actually it depends what team you're on, but it's mostly that's all they really care about is the result at the end of the day. So there's a lot of pressure on that, and over the course of the races I realised like actually this is your setup and the results, you're not measuring this on your results. Yes, you want good results, but actually you can just have a good time here and just love the racing because that's what it's about. And so you're not going to come back at the end of the day and have someone wanting to know your results and you know only posting about results and stuff. It's like, yeah, it's much more than that now. So I think it took me a while to shift out of that because obviously for 5 years that's been what it's about. And that's how I've operated, and I've had to change. Like, just chill out. It's all right. Like, just enjoy this.
Just have fun.
Just have a good time. So
if you're having fun, you're probably going to be going fast, aren't you?
Exactly. And it goes back to that thing I was talking about with being on the team. And if you're in a stressful situation on the team, you're not going to perform as well because you can't get to the top speed that your ability that you really have. And so, for me, it's been about getting back to that. Those first few races were really, 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 really hard. Like, I can't explain how hard they were because I was just a broken woman. Yeah. You know? It's taken till now for me to properly kind of recover or start to recover.
It's one thing I was thinking was with all that was going on straight the off season, that's supposed to be your chill time, a bit of recuperating, obviously getting back into training. Did you find that you were just like knackered by the time you even got to the start line because you didn't really get an off season?
No, and I didn't know I was. Yeah. Like, it's not until now I know, because I was just in pure survival mode. I'd been so stressed for so long that I was just, my emotional resilience, mental strength was so low because I'd used it all trying to stay, you know, trying to keep pushing on and get this all sorted. So I did the first race and I held it all together and that was mint. But then I needed at least a week to recuperate from that, and I had to race again in 2 days. And then the conditions got really difficult because it rained, but it didn't rain enough for it to be really, really wet. It just made things slightly slick, but then half dry. So it was those terrifying conditions where you're like, oh, everything's grippy. Oh no, it's not. I'm going to die off this route or something. And I just had no capacity at all to deal with that. I was riding so stiff because I was just done. I was absolutely done. And it was probably the most heartbreaking race I've ever done because I rode as hard as I could and I did my absolute best and I knew I'd done my best at that point in time. But it was so far off what I know I could do that I finished that race just like, oh my God, like, where do we go from here? Because that was horrible. It was just horrible.
Okay.
Because I was so annihilated.
Completely understandable though, to be fair, like when you think like just not being able to psychologically and physically to kind of just get that chill time.
Yeah.
Like racing should be the stressful part.
Yeah.
And then the off season should be the fun part or the chill part, but you didn't get it.
No, I didn't get it. Did not get it.
So you do you feel you're almost having your off season mid-season now basically?
Well, I'm doing a lot of work on my recovery and getting myself back to where I want to be. And so because I know that my stress levels are a lot lower and I've done this block of training that I've just done and I've worked really hard on it, I know I'm actually making the adaptations that because my body's not as stressed. So it is actually absorbing the training and doing what it needs to do. And I'm mentally recovering as well. And I knew that going into the first part of the season. I was like, this isn't where your season is. This is just get through it in one piece so that you can recover, do a good chunk of training, and then attack the second half of the season and really lay down what you actually can, because you'll be in a position and a place to do that.
Now you're like halfway through the season. You've experienced what it's like to kind of have your own program, be a privateer, if that's what you want to call it. Are you now at the stage where do you want to get back in a factory team, or are you actually like, this is class, I like the way this works, I want to just carry on doing this next year, maybe in a bigger way or with more support, but still having that overall privateer setup on the go? Yeah,
it's something I've been thinking about an awful lot, like a lot. You know, it's always on my head. Like that's why at those races I was comparing. I was like, right, is this better? Is it not? What are the good points? What are the bad points? Where do I want to go? And then also asking myself questions of like, okay, what is it truly that you need in order to perform the best? Where do you see your future in the sport? You know, all these big questions. And I want to keep doing this team, and I want to expand it. I want to bring younger riders on and up through it and everything like that. But it's going to take. It's probably not going to be next year, but maybe the year after that, once I'm more established. You know, I want to work on cementing this team and making it more professional in order to get more investment from brands, and then build the future of it and start helping younger riders and try and make a team like my ideal team that hopefully works for other people as well, and then kind of become a team that people want to be on.
Yeah, you got your eyes on some riders already, like potentials. It's really cool to hear that something that's happened that's probably like, it was literally what you thought was like the worst thing that could possibly happen, and now you're already looking at it in like such a positive way. Do you feel you're at the stage where you're actually glad it's happened yet, or are you still not quite there yet?
Nah, I knew at the time. I was like, nah, this is a good thing. I know this is a good thing. This is a hellish thing, but it's going to be good. I know it's going to be good because I basically had nothing. So I was like, you've got every single opportunity, because you could go anywhere with this, because you're literally at rock bottom. So it wasn't like I was stuck in some awkward position. It was like, okay, I literally could go anywhere with this. And so you just shift your mindset to that. I was like, oh, there's endless opportunities now. You can do whatever you want. Yeah,
it's funny how things work out, isn't it?
It is, yes.
An interesting thing that people always want to hear about is prize money.
Okay.
Say, for argument's sake, if you're on a sort of bike-only deal, or you're on like a sort of support-only deal and you've only got your expenses covered, could you, in theory, results dependent, live off prize money in mountain biking or EWS?
No, not even a chance.
Even if you
won
not even a hesitation. Even if you won every race?
No way. Like no way. Yeah. But the thing is, it's so expensive.
Yeah, with like Crankworks and stuff. It's the same with like Tani and Vero talked about it with UCI World Cups. Crankworks kind of embraces that prize money thing, doesn't it?
They do.
Have the checks and like everyone knows like how much you're getting if you win a race. But in EWS and UCI World Cups, don't really see it, so you never really know what's going on.
The good thing with EWS is it's always equal. Like, always equal. And I think having it as quite a young discipline, they've kind of set out with that from the start, as making things as equal as possible, you know, making sure they're talking to the riders to try and, you know, make it as equal as they can. That's why I'm really proud to be a part of it, because I feel like they're really doing it in a good way. So, but yeah, there's not a chance you could live off that, because you've got to live all year, and then you've got the output of actually getting to all those races, which is extremely expensive. Like, so expensive. So there's not a hope in hell that you could survive off prize money.
How much do you reckon, if you had to like roughly put an amount on how much it costs to race a full season around the world without paying yourself? Have you even made that calculation, or you just is it like a work in progress? You'll tell me in September.
Yeah, it changes. Like, obviously I'd worked out, when I was working out budgets and stuff at the end of November, I was working off a full season, and then I had to change that to whatever's left of this season in Europe. So it cut down the cost a lot, which is great for me because I'm doing this myself, and just being in Europe and things. But it can be 15 to 20 grand really, if you want to do it, especially if you're going to South America and go to America as well as being in Europe and stuff as well. So it can become really expensive, especially if you don't want to just live in a van. You know what I mean? If you're going to actually stay in an Airbnb or whatever, so that you've got a shower and a washing machine and stuff.
Well, it's good to hear that you can do it with your boyfriend, because I guess that whilst you get the support of each other, it also kind of splits those costs, doesn't it? So
yeah, definitely.
You must make it a lot more achievable.
Yeah, for sure.
On a small budget.
And you can do it with more people if you wanted to. Like, I could make it cheaper if I travelled with more people, but I was keen to just keep it quite simple, especially with COVID. I didn't know, okay, are we going to have to be weird with little bubbles and things like that? Like, if like Joe's with me, I'm with Joe. We know we're not nipping off somewhere else random and mixing with a whole load of other people and getting COVID and bring it back to each other or whatever. So, yeah, that was managed within that too. That's
good to hear. You talked about the pay being equal in terms of prize money. In your experience over the years, again, it's something I talked about with Tani and Vero. Have you ever experienced glaring gender inequalities within the industry in any part, whether it's racing, whether it's in a more general sense as well?
No, I haven't seen it, if you know what I mean. You can just kind of feel it, but I also don't believe it's just limited to male and female. I also believe it's top racers to mid-pack racers as well. Because most of the contracts you're not allowed to discuss what you're on, puts us all in a really difficult situation, because none of us really know, but then everybody that we speak to, you know, all the brands we speak to, they know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that puts everybody in quite a difficult position, and I don't have the answers of how to move forward, but it's something that, you know, by sharing my story as well, making people aware of this side of things, like, it's trying to start conversations and see where things go, because it can be fairer across the board. I believe it can be fairer for everybody.
Because you can't openly discuss it, it's not like there's a database where you can see it all. What ends up happening is just these like Chinese whispers, and like I think sometimes salaries can get like when you suddenly hear if someone's on 100 grand, like 5 Chinese whispers later, like that 100 grand's like maybe doubled, and
exactly. So you don't know unless you're actually talking to the person. So it's you never really know.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Because it's like you're like, is that really true, or is that just like got out of control a little bit?
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. I think it sounds like it's probably across the board in all sports. There's just always seems to be that massive gap between like the top 5 or top 3 even. To then like even if you're in the top 10 or something like that. Again, I think people always just think everyone's on this like crazy money, but
no,
that sort of state of the sport thing. Did you do a questionnaire for that?
Yeah, I did.
It was amazing to hear. Like,
interesting.
I don't know, was it like 45% of like top 40 downhillers are on like less than 5 grand or something, 0 to 5 grand or something like that. I probably got that wrong, but
no, it was something like that though. It was something outrageous. It was like, oh my goodness. It was insane. It was really interesting. It was good to get those numbers and things out there for us as riders, but also for the general public as well. It was a really good idea. And, you know, I think riders talking amongst themselves have been looking for something like that. Like, how can we show people what's going on, truthfully.
But still anonymously as well, which is obviously good.
Exactly. Yeah, so that was a good way of doing it.
Yeah, that was like a really good piece actually, because I was like reading that and I was like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure who did it, but that must have been a serious amount of work to put all that together. I was like, this is insane.
To get all the data.
Cool. So yeah, like for the rest of the season, like have you got any specific goals in mind, or is it a case of just getting out there and having fun and seeing where it all lands?
Well, the way I was riding in those first 4 rounds is not riding like myself, and so my first goal is really just to get back to riding with that confidence and in my ability and trusting myself, trusting my bike, and thriving rather than just surviving. So that's my first goal, and then I think the results will just come from that, and I'm in a much better place. I'm way happier. The stress is kind of taken off, and I'm just looking forward to actually enjoying those races. So that's kind of the goal.
Looking forward to watching the rest of the season. Looking forward to Moxie 11 factory racing.
World domination.
Yeah. Nah, for sure. Like you say, like if that all kicks off, you will definitely be looking back like to 2020 and being like, thank God that actually happened to me. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You've probably learned like so much stuff.
Yeah, I think when things like that happen to you, it's an opportunity to grow as a person and learn more about things you hadn't thought about. And I definitely feel like I accelerated, like sort of 4 or 5 years of kind of being stagnant. Now I've been forced to change, forced to make decisions, forced to, put myself in uncomfortable positions. But that's where you get better and improve as a human. So although it was hard, it was also like a thrill, because you're like, wow,
just learning stuff.
Yeah, I'm learning stuff, and you learn that you can count on yourself because you went through that and you got through it. And you're like, oh, sick. Like, what else can we do?
And I guess like you're obviously talking about taking on like new riders and stuff whilst you're still riding, but just in terms of your career beyond racing, it's only going to set you up well for that, even if it's not within the industry. It's like it's just skills that you'll be able to use in other jobs or whatever you fancy doing, I suppose. So.
Yeah, I hope so.
Nice one. Well, good luck.
Nice.
I did see you plug your e-bike in earlier, so don't want to keep you away from that for too much longer. But thanks very much for coming on, sharing your story.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. Where should people hit you up on Instagram, YouTube?
I'm YouTube Katy Winton, and on Instagram I'm at Miss Winton, and that's pretty much my 2 main jams.
Cool. Are you going to be doing some YouTube videos from the races?
Yes, I'm in the middle of editing the next 3 episodes.
From the ones that have already been?
Yes, I've got cool. 3 more to come just before the next chunk of the season. So that's my plan. And now that I've said it on this, it's got to happen.
There you go. There's a commitment. We're going to get like a specific date for release.
No.
Oh, come on, we need to pin you down. You need to at least do it before you leave again. I've
got one that's ready, but then I've got to get the other ones sorted out, but they're not too far off. So
cool.
Yeah. Keeping up with Katy.
If they, I'll keep an eye out for them when they come in. So even if people are listening to this a little bit further along, I should be able to still update the notes. So
sick, thank you.
I'll whap them in too. Cheers.
Awesome.
Enjoy your ride.
Thank you so much.